Hey, this is Dave Weber. Webinar etiquette and leverage using webinars on air. Webinars can be an incredible tool for you and your business, and it can also create leverage for you and your entire team. However, we have to learn how to create them professionally, otherwise our message won't be taken seriously. And that's important not only during the webinar, but also after the webinar when someone's watching the video later on. So let's talk about some things that we should be aware of, and we'll also talk about some things that we shouldn't do. Because if the webinar is being recorded, you could have regrets for a long time. Okay, so there are two types of webinars to be thinking about to start off with. Webinars that you are branding to you, and webinars that will benefit your team and are meant to be shared. If the webinar is meant to brand to you, well then you should mention your first and last name. And with webinars on air, you can add your name in a banner that will be displayed at the bottom of the screen. This way your viewers will constantly be reminded of who you are, and they can relate to you as a leader. They see your face, they hear your voice, they see your name. But if the webinar is meant to be shared and used as leverage for your team, then you should keep everything down to a first name basis only, and no banners, especially if you've been invited in as a guest or a panelist on someone else's webinar. Remember, the webinar will later become a video, and if it's meant to be shared by all of your team, you don't want to steal success away from them. You want to bring success to them. Next thing for us to consider is some do's and don'ts when it comes to audio and webcams. So let's start with webcams. Pay attention to your background. It can be pretty embarrassing if your spouse comes walking by just after getting out of the shower, or kids or pets. Heck, almost anything can become a surprise and end up being broadcast to a whole bunch of people. So try and have a neutral background of some sort, or at least a safe environment that won't create any surprises for you. And the lighting should be in front of you or a little bit off to the side of you and a little bit above you, but not behind you. But in any case, try and create for yourself an environment that looks neutral at the least and professional at the best. And with webinars on air, you can turn off the webcam if you have to with just a click of the button. So, and if you do that, it will only show your gravatar image on the screen. Next to the audio, and this is crucial, you can spend an hour or so doing an awesome training, and because of background noise and feedback and echoes, it can be a total waste of your time. And again, this is not just about you, it's also about your team being able to leverage these webinars and trainings to help them grow their team as well. So these audio tips are crucial for all of us. So most computers, and especially laptops, have microphones and speakers built in, and they are usually terrible. And unless you have a very expensive microphone, they're usually not very good at filtering out unwanted noise. So the easiest way to fix feedback or echoes is to use a headset, or at the very least, use earphones. And this prevents the sound from coming from the speakers and going back into the microphone and coming out of the speakers and going back into the microphone. And this causes echoes. That would fix 99% of our problems with audio when it comes to webinars. But there's also something else that we can do, and that's each of us, because we have full control over this next one. It's called a mute button. Now, we may have them on our computer, or maybe right on our headset, or the wire for our headset. Okay, but we also have one with webinars on air too, and that's what we should become familiar with. Now, I'm going to show you exactly where it is in a minute, but it's located at the top of your screen when you come into webinars on air. And as soon as you come into webinars on air as a panelist or invited as a guest panelist, you need to know where this button is. Because when you come into webinars on air as a guest panelist, you're usually muted to begin with. So when you come in, move your cursor up to the top of the screen and your mute button will appear. There's a little toolbar at the top that drops down, and there's your mute button. Then you can click it to mute or unmute yourself. Now this is important when we use webinars on air, and I say that because we can fit up to 10 different panelists with video on webinars on air at the same time. That so sounds cool, doesn't it? Well, yeah, it is, but then again, it can be a total nightmare. You see, when you have a few people, and especially 10 people on a webinar as panelists, with audio and video, it causes the screen to flip back and forth. Webinars on Air is listening to see who's talking, and if that person talks, it puts their picture up there. But if then, when you're trying to talk or present a training and someone even sniffles, or they move their chair or they type on their keyboard, the screen flips to them and comes off of you. So there's two ways that we can fix this. You can control your own mute button. And that's the best way, and that's the way a team should work. Each one of us pitches in and does our fair share to create a great webinar. Or number two, the host shuts you off or kicks you out. And the bad part of that is you may have something to contribute and you find out that you were just speaking to yourself because you didn't know you were muted. The host muted you because you were making too much background noise. So with just a little bit of awareness, we can all have an awesome webinars and training sessions. Now, the next thing that we need to discuss is how to take these webinars and the videos of them and use them to get more leverage. Now, what do I mean about leverage? Well, when you're building your own team, your new team members won't know your products very well yet. And most likely, they either won't know how to do a good webinar, or they may not even want to do it. So they could use your webinar and share it with their own circles and leads. And this way, they can benefit from your work and your expertise. They're benefiting, they're getting the leverage. You do the work, they get to use your content. So before we go and take a look at the dashboard of Webinars on Air and see some of the controls, let's take a look at two different ways that your new team members can leverage your webinars. Now, the first way is pretty cool and involves the invitation to the webinar. So first we create the webinar, and I'll show you how we do that, and then also how we redirect the attendees after the webinar is over. So if you have webinars on air, this is what the back office would look like. And when we create the webinar, there's the link. And all you do is copy the link and email it to all of your team members. But everybody be inviting everybody else, all their guests, to the same webinar. So what we want them to do is create a custom tracking link. Okay? And what that custom tracking link does is it cookies their guests to them. So in other words, if you have 10 people to invite and one of your team members have 10 people to invite, you get your team member to create their own custom tracking link for the link going to Webinars on Air, to the webinar. And then all of those 10 people are cookied to him. And then your people that you invite are cookied to you before they ever arrive at the webinar. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, in MLSP anyway, we come in here and we can add new custom link. And when we do that, this screen pops up and we just paste in the link to the webinar right in the URL box. Then we come up and we give it a name. Now I just use, Webinars on Air, the initials, and then the date. This way I know exactly which one is which link belongs where. And then we select the stub. And the stub is whatever domain you're going to use this link with, /.com/, and then this would be what comes after the slash. It's the stub. And then you just click Add Custom Link, and that's it. You're done. So really easy. Okay? After creating the custom tracking link, generate the HTML code for it. Then all you or your teammate has to do is copy and paste in order to invite visitors to the webinar. But they will now be cookied to you or your teammate, depending on who's doing the link. So when you generate, you click this button over here, Generate Linked HTML. It creates an HTML link. Okay, and it has the description if you were to embed this on WordPress or a blog or something like that. But this quotation marks, I got the box hiding it a little bit, but there's a quotation mark here and there's a quotation mark here. And what we want to do is copy inside of the quotation marks, and that's it. There's your link. Now you can go put that link anywhere and invite people to the webinar, but they will be cookied to you. And that's pretty cool. Okay, so that's what we do to invite people to the webinar, and it's the same webinar that everyone else is inviting their guests to as well. But if the visitor had bought something or signed up in your program, you or your teammate, depending on who created and shared the link, would get the lead, the commission, or the sign up. Even if they visit the site that we can redirect our attendees to after the webinar is over. So let me show you how we can redirect them. Okay, I'm going to show you the back office of Webinars on Air in a minute, but over here it says redirect all attendees. Okay, and all we do, in this case, we're just using MLSP as an example. You can use whatever your company is with Webinars on Air, but I'm just using MLSP as an example because my team is getting this video as well. So all we do is put a generic link in here. Like this is just mlsp.com. Typically, you would have your username before it, so it'd be your username.mlsp.com. But because we're trying to leverage the webinar and make it available so all of the team members can go and promote this on their own and leverage off the webinar, we're going to send it to just the generic link. Or if it's a product, if you were doing a webinar on a product or training course, you would put the generic link for that sales funnel for that product in here. But because the people, all of your teammates, are inviting them to the same webinar, all they do is make a custom tracking link, and when the person clicks on the custom tracking link, they get cookied to that person. Then if they go to this site or another site, or if they go and buy or they go and join, you get credit for the sale. So at the end of the webinar, we can redirect our attendees to a site like MLSP without a username. Or if we're talking about a specific product, we could redirect them to the sales funnel. And again, without a username. But then, whoever invited them, they were cookied to you. So if they buy something or join, you get the lead, you get the commission, you get the sign up. Now, while I'm on this screen, I want to show you that this particular panel over here, remember this is on the Google Hangouts, the Google Plus Hangouts platform, but Webinars on Air is an application for Google Hangouts to make it like on steroids. And when we open up Webinars on Air, this particular control panel opens up, and then we can redirect, we can see the chat, we can see a poll, we can have Q&A, you can see who the attendees are, and you can put out an offer. And people can buy, from you right there on Webinars on Air. You can even have coaching sessions, and it goes right to your PayPal account using the Google Hangouts platform. But the Webinars on Air is this application that allows you to do all these cool things. So all of the buttons, and I'm going to show you this in a minute. But over here I talked about when you move your mouse across the screen, if you're invited in as a panelist or a guest panelist, when you come in, you should be muted automatically. But when you come in, if you just move your cursor across the screen, this toolbar pops down and there's your mute button right there. And if you just got out of the shower, you can turn around and disable your webcam, and then it will only show your Gravatar picture instead. But you have full control. So as soon as you come in, you can turn off your webcam if you want. You can mute and unmute. And when it's your turn to talk, you unmute. When somebody else is talking, you be courteous and help create a professional webinar by muting yourself. But we're also talking about your team members leveraging off of your webinars after the webinar was over. And because Webinars on Air is built off the Google Hangouts platform, it will post the video onto YouTube and also onto Google+. So here's how you or your team members can leverage off of that post on Google+. All we have to do is make one more custom tracking link. Now here, I already made the tracking link so that when I go to show you generate the link, I can have both screens open at the same time. So remember, at the end of the webinar, as an example, we're going to send our attendees, redirect them to the mlsp.com site. Okay, so we put that in here. This is where we want it to go. Now we make a name for it, and this is probably going to be a popular one for anyone on my team or anyone in MLSP. So I just named it mlsp.com, but I put a B underscore, and what I do is my most important custom links, I start off with A underscore B underscore C underscore. This way it keeps them all at the top of the list because I have almost 100 of them and it's hard to find them, so I just categorize them. So just by putting something in front of it, you can categorize it. And then again, the stub. What's the stub? Whatever your URL is, .com/ after that is the stub. So I just put MLSP site. So this way, when I see the link, I know exactly what it's for. Okay, but then we want to generate the tracking link. We want to generate the link HTML. So we come down here and we click on this button and this window opens up. Now, this is the domain. There's several different domains we can choose from. Most likely, I happen to choose this one for most of my links. It's my domain that I host with MLSP. So I select which one I want to use. Then you select a link. So you come over here to this drop down box, and when you click it, well, for me it's a big long list, but I just happened to make this link just before I did this. So when I click on this, it will be the last one on the list. All I have to do is scroll right down to the bottom and I got it. When I select it, it populates it. Then you can decide if you want to click open link, if you want to use the entire code. It's an option. But then we click generate HTML code. Now last time with the red box around it, you couldn't see the quotation marks, but here it is. Inside of this quotation mark, we copy and paste all the way across to the next quotation mark. Don't include the quotation marks. So you just want the http:// the link, then /go, and then MLSP site. That's what I called it. So that's what we copy. Okay, so now what do we do with that? And then on Google Plus, we can click on share. So in other words, if you're on my team and I was doing the webinar and you invited people to the webinar, or you have 1,000 followers, right? We teach you how to get 1,000 followers on Google, like right off the bat. As soon as you join our team, we teach you how to do that right away because you have to have someone to talk to, right? So, you would go to my Google Plus account to see where that post is. And all you would do is click on share. Then at the top of the post, in the description, we can enter something like this. This is just an example. Hey, our team had a great hangout last night. Here's the link that was given at the end of the webinar in case you want to check it out. Boom, end of story. You're not sales pitching them. You're just inviting them to watch the webinar. But if let's say we were doing a product on a training course and they really liked that training course, right? Well, they're watching the recording so they can't get redirected. But if you make a custom tracking link to that funnel and paste it in here, well then now at the end of the video when they're done watching, they have a link that they can click on. So even though it's recording, you can still leverage off that webinar even though it's over with. And you don't want to be sales pitchy. Remember, we don't sell anything. We just share information and share value. But this is just an example. You can use your own words. And the reason why I put the link right smack in the middle is because when you share a post on Google Plus, you're only going to see like the first 2-3 sentences, and that's it. After that, it's going to say read more. So if you put it down at the end over here, they may never see that, and they may have to click read more. So instead, just put something like, hey, we had a great hangout last night. Here's the link, and put the link right there. Or put the link right at the beginning, and then put your description. But this is why we do that, so that when your person looks at that webinar recording and they like what it's about and they click on it, they know that there's the link that they can use, and you tell them that this is where the webinar went to at the end. Now it was easy to do, and with just a couple of clicks, you have more value to share on your Google Plus account. Your Google Plus account. This is what this is all about. You're either doing webinars for yourself or you're doing them so that your team can leverage off of your knowledge, your experience, and your mentoring. You're the coach, so you want to help them gain success. So if we do this with our webinars, we keep it down to first name basis. There's no banners or anything saying, hey, here's my name. If we keep it down to that, after the webinar is over, now they can share it to all of their followers on their Google Plus account by making a custom tracking link. Then they get the commission, they get the sale, they get the sign up. That's what this is all about, getting leverage off of content being created by leaders or yourself or whatever. And the really cool thing about this is it is so easy for your brand new teammates to do. It's basically just a few clicks here and there and then copy and paste. And then they can share your webinars, but they get the leads, they get the commissions, and they get the signups. Okay, so let's invite you guys in and see how the controls work for webinars on air, and then know exactly what to do on your next webinar. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this, and when we sign into in the back, when we sign into the back office and we're going to create a webinar, this is the panel that you would see. Now, I turned off my webcam, okay, and right now because I'm talking, all the toolbars are being shown and my cursor's here, but this is the toolbar that we're talking about. So if someone invites you in as a panelist, the first thing you want to do is go to this toolbar and either mute yourself, mute your microphone, or unmute yourself. Okay, so now there's a couple of things, like right now you're seeing a blank screen, and if they brought you in as a panelist, you would see their pictures over here, each one of the people, and we can have 10 people going all the way across as panelists. So you would see the other people and you could sit here and talk, but you're looking at a blank screen and you can't see what's going on in the chat. So over here on the left hand side is a toolbar. Now all of these different tools and gadgets and stuff are for Google Hangouts, right? But this one here, the square with the different colors, the blue, the red, the green, the yellow, okay, this square, this is Webinars on Air. So what you do is click that and it opens up the panel on the right hand side. So now we can look at chat. We can look at if there was a poll or you want to create a poll, you can type in here. Okay, first you decide if it's going to make the results public or not, but you can type in a poll question. Then you can add an answer. Maybe you have 3 answers. So you can add one answer, A, B, and then you can add another one for C. Okay, so now they have a question and they have 3 answers that they can select. And then you select whether or not you want to make the results public, and then you click on Start Poll. Or you have it set up until the time when you're ready to release the poll. Okay, a Q&A box. Now this is cool because when you have 500 or 1,000 people or more in the chat, that chat box is going like crazy. And if somebody asks a question, you can't possibly see it go by, because it's going fast. So we open up a Q&A box, and if they have questions, they can put it there. And then at the end, then you can answer questions. So and then you can have it set up and ready to go, and anytime you want you can enable questions and answers. And like I said, you can do this at the very beginning if you wanted, or towards the end, but it allows people to ask the questions. They might be writing them down, but now they can ask them, and then you can go down one at a time and answer the questions. Okay, if you want to see who else is out there, I'm actually signed in here once as a guest and as an attendee, and once as the host. But you can see who is in the room, and that's why Webinars on Air ask you for your name and your email address. It personalizes each person to the webinar. Okay, and you can boot them out. If you had somebody in there that was misbehaving or whatever, you click that red X and they're gone and they can't get back in. That's the whole purpose of using a registration form, is to personalize each person. You can see who's asking the question, you can see who's making comments, and you can boot people out if they're misbehaving. So that's one of the things we can do. And if there was like 1,000 people or 500 and you're looking for a certain guest to bring them in as a panelist, and you're in the back office here, well, then you can click up here and search for the person's name and just start typing and it will populate. Here's what we were talking about: redirect all attendees. So we can put in here that link that we were talking about, and there you go. It's all set up, it's ready to go. So then at the end of the webinar, when you're getting ready to finish it up, all you do is push the button and a pop-up will pop up on everybody's screen saying the host is redirecting you to a site. Is that okay? And they can select yes or no, and if they don't select anything, it's going to go there anyway. So, but anyway, you can just click on that whenever you're ready, when the webinar is over. So in other words, here's a cool thing. See, no matter what company you're with Webinars on Air, you can be talking about a specific product. Maybe you have a network marketing company and products, right? So you can go ahead and have a link going to a specific product, right? Now, I'm just using that as an example. Maybe you are in Amway, or maybe you are in Melaleuca or something like that, and you have a certain link that goes to a certain product, okay? And then there's a username involved. Well, if you create a custom tracking link and then send them to the link by itself that just goes to the catalog page for that product, the username is being entered. At least it is with MLSP. But the person's being cookied to that link. And that's what's a really cool thing about that. Anybody can invite anybody they want to the webinar, and then you send them to the sales page. But this would be a generic blog, right? So we can look at attendees. We can also look at an offer. If we create an offer, we can put the product name, we can put an image URL in there. So if the image is out there on PhotoBucket or something, and then a description, and then is it a free product or paid? Okay, and then what is the text on the button, and where does the button go to? So just by filling out a couple of little places on here, you can make an offer. And then during the course of the webinar, you might deliver content to the people, and then you want to offer them the product that you're talking about, and it just kind of pops up in the chat box. And I'll show you what that looks like for the attendee. But they're sitting there, and all of a sudden it just like pops up. The chat box goes away, and there's the offer. And they can click on it and go buy it right there while the webinar is being done, or towards the end of the webinar. But all you do is fill out this information, and it creates a nice looking banner that they can click on. And here's the text for the button. And where do you want that to go to? So if you were talking about a specific course, they can click on the button and go buy that course right now. Now remember that URL will not have a username in it, but they will still get credit for the sale because you cookied them by making a custom tracking link and then sending them into the webinar. This is how we can use this to create powerful leverage for your team. All they have to do is share a link, and they get the commission, they get the sale, they get the sign up. So it's pretty cool. Now if you don't like icons, you can hit the drop down box, and it's the exact same thing up here. So we're going to go to chat. I'm not going to enable this yet because I want to show you what it looks like for the attendees. What do they see when they come to a webinar? This is the back office where all the panelists are and stuff. And what's cool about webinars on air is when you start a webinar, until you push this button, nobody sees or hears you. So you can have 10 panelists come in, and you can set up a game plan. You can say, hey, Jill, I want you to take care of the chat. Can you do that? Okay, cool. Hey, Marva, can you take care of questions and answers? Okay, cool. David, can you do this? Luann, so you can decide who's going to do what to help manage the webinar. And nobody can hear you and nobody can see your screen, but you're in the back office here and you can do all this stuff. So what do the attendees see? What do they see? Well, when they come, it doesn't matter how early they come. It basically just says it's scheduled for a certain time, and that's it. But this is what they see. Now over here is a toolbar for them. Now they can raise their hand, but basically the chat, the questions and answers, the polls, the checkout offer, all of that stuff is blanked out. It's light gray, right? They can't see it. So when they come in here, and if you're not familiar with webinars on air, you're coming into the webinar, this is what you see. But you need to understand, you need to look over here for the chat button so you can turn it on. Now, almost all of us enable the chat like soon as we get there so people can start talking with each other and keep themselves occupied and get to know each other and make friends and stuff before the webinar starts. So this is how we do that. We come back to the back office, we open up chat, or either with the icon or the drop down, and all we do is click the button, enable chat. Okay, so now let's see what that looks like for the attendee. See, it popped up, and now it's darker than the other ones. In fact, when it first comes on, they get a warning. It says, hey, you're now allowed to chat. So let's click that button. Okay, now the chat box opens up on the right side. And this is one of the coolest things with webinars on air. A lot of companies or a lot of platforms that we use for webinars, it's difficult sometimes for people to be able to chat with each other. And again, somebody can be monitoring it. So if somebody's getting out of hand or spamming or whatever, you can kick them out, or you can turn off the chat and address it. But anyway, when you come into webinars on air as an attendee, this is the button. You want to immediately, as soon as you come in, you immediately want to come up here and turn it on. Or if you want to take notes while the webinar is going on, you can turn it off so that you're not distracted by a lot of people chatting. But typically when you do a webinar, you want to turn off that function. But anyway, as soon as you come into the webinar, look for this. And if it's activated, you'll see that it's darker than the other ones, and you can open it up. So what about the questions and answers? What about that? So we can come over here to Q&A, and we can enable the Q&A. So we come back, and this is in the back office. If we go back to the attendee view, what do they see? Well, now they can answer a question. So the chat is open right now, and down here they can chat, and there's a little button here for little icons that pop up. You can play around and pick different things, party cake, stuff like that. Um, but anyway, what about the questions and answers? What does that look like? Well, if you click the button, go ahead, ask a question. You just type it in here, hit the submit button. Boom. Now you can make it go away by Xing it, or turning back on the chat, or whatever. And if there was a poll and the person in the back enables the poll, it will pop up over here and the chat will go away. The same thing with an offer. If you're presenting an offer and the host or panelist enables the offer, the chat's going to disappear and it's going to be over here, the offer. Now, if you're an attendee and you see the offer and you say, I already have that, or I'm not interested, fine, go back, click the chat bubble, and the chat bubble will come back up. So as soon as you come in as an attendee, this is what it looks like. The first thing you want to do, you're going to come in, you're going to see this. The first thing you want to do is to see if the chat is enabled. If it is, well then go ahead, and say, hey, how you doing, and hit enter, and there you go. Now in the back office, you get, if you were sitting here on enable, oh, this turned orange. So when you click on it, there you go. And now you can, answer back to the attendees. Same with Q&A. When you get a question, this will highlight a different color. So Webinars on Air is basically Google Plus Hangouts on steroids. If you want to teach or coach online and charge, you say, hey, I charge 20 bucks an hour, I charge 50 bucks an hour, and I'll come online and teach you for an hour or two, whatever. The person decides what they want from you, and you can hook this up or integrate it with your PayPal account. So if you set it up as a paid webinar, attendees can't get in unless they're invited and unless they pay for it with their credit card going to your PayPal account before the webinar starts. Otherwise, they can't see it. So it's a great way for you to teach online or coach online. If you have products of your own, you can sell those products inside of Webinars on Air by just creating an offer. And when you do this, if it's a paid offer, well then, now the PayPal email address, this is how much it costs, and a thank you page, currency, you set it up. So it's a powerful extension to something that's already powerful. But the really cool thing for you and me to remember as team builders, as mentors, as coaches, if you're building a team, you can use this platform not only to brand yourself, but what you want to do is help build your team. So if we keep this at first name basis, if we do the different things that we were talking about, and we show our team members how to create, especially in MLSP, creating custom tracking codes so that they can invite people to the same webinar. This way we're all on the same page. You're delivering great content, and you can use the video afterwards, and you can use the webinar Hangout, the Hangout on Air, Google Plus Hangouts on Air, on your Google Plus account to share with all of your followers, right? So you get to do that. But by using custom tracking links, your team members can come over to your Google Plus account and share that post to their Google Plus account. And now it goes to all of their followers. So check this out. Let's say you had 100 people that you were going to invite to a webinar. But then you had 10 other people on your team, and they were going to invite, their followers. Well, if they throw the link out there, you could end up having 1,000 people coming to your webinar, right? And each one of your 10 teammates get credit for their own attendees that they invited. And then after it's all over, and that's to invite the people, after it's over, they can turn around and post that webinar by sharing it onto their Google Plus account. And now as they increase more and more followers and those people come to your Google Plus page and check you out, they'll see these webinars. And if they see a title to something that they're interested in, they can watch it at a later date. So, 3 months from now, they might check out this webinar and buy that product or sign up in your program. And you get the commission, you get the sale, you get the sign up, you get the lead, just because you're creating this neutral content that can be shared. Okay, everybody in your team can share it. That's the power, and that's one of the reasons why we've been switching over to this platform. But the platform doesn't work unless you know how to use it. So as an attendee, when you come in, always look for this chat bubble on the side. And then as a panelist, if you get invited in, you need to know where the tools are. If this button isn't clicked, this is what you're going to see. You need to know where the toolbar is so that you can mute yourself while you're sitting and listening to other people talk. When it's your turn, or they ask you to talk, or somebody asks a question and you have the answer, well, unclick and then you can talk. But when you're not talking, click the mute button. When there's icons down here, let's say there's just two people, and I'm talking and then you click your keyboard, or you brush up against your microphone, or you sneeze, now the people are looking at you instead of me. So I might not personally really care because they can still hear my voice. However, if you're trying to create a webinar that's recordable, something that's going to be professional that you can have on YouTube, or put it in an article, the video, and share that video to everyone on your blog or your articles or on Google Plus or wherever, well, you want it to be professional. So the only way we can do that is to pay attention and do a little housekeeping chores of our own and work together and make sure, especially this button, that you understand how to use it. When it's your turn to talk, click it and unmute yourself. If someone else is talking, click it and mute yourself so that when people look at the screen, they're seeing one person. Now, I have my webcam turned off right now. I just woke up. But, so you're just seeing a picture. But, if somebody was sitting there talking and your viewers, your prospects, your potential leads are watching this, you want them to be able to brand to the face that's talking or to see what he's talking about. You don't want it to keep blipping back and forth. So you might say, well, I got to get up and go to the bathroom. I have to get something from the kitchen because I'm hungry. And you push away from your desk and everybody sees you walking away instead of the other person. So this is what we wanted to do. A little bit of etiquette. It's a very powerful tool that you can use to help your team grow. Remember, if your team grows and prospers and increases in numbers, your income goes up. But if they're brand new, they don't know how to do this, well, we need to help them do this. And webinars are extremely powerful for you to do that. You can come in as the expert and promote a product or talk about a product and then redirect them afterwards to the sales funnel for that product, and your team members, just by knowing how to create a custom link, can capitalize on that. And because it's going to be on YouTube and you can take and share that YouTube video, and because it goes to Google Plus and you can share it all over the place on Google Plus, people can look at this like 3 months later or 6 months later. People can share it to their friends and circles, and those people can share it to theirs, and those people can share it to theirs. So we want to create great content on the webinar, something that's really valuable, right? We share that on a webinar, and then it becomes a post on Google Plus, and now we can share it. But you can't share it if it's all sales pitch, and you can't share it, nobody would want to share it, if it's all about you and your name. So if you're branding yourself, you can create, in fact, you go into here into the Hangout toolbox, you go in there, and you can create a banner, and it will be all along the bottom here. And every time you're talking, it would have your name. So that's if you're branding yourself. But you need to think about your team members, and you need to think about their success. You want to help them succeed and have them leverage off of your webinars. So remember what the webinars on air attendee area looks like. When you come in, you sign in, and it'll bring you to this page. Up here, top left corner, chat box. Now you can communicate. Questions and answers open up. You can ask questions in there. If you put it in the chat box and you have 100 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, it will be lost. And one of the attendees might answer it, but you might be getting second-hand or third-hand information. If you have somebody speaking, that knows this answer better than anyone else, you want that person to answer your question. So you'd come over here and put it in the questions and answer box. And if you're invited in as a panelist, well then understand where your webcam and your mute button is. Be courteous. Be part of the team. There could be 3 or 4 or 5 other people. Be courteous. Be part of this team, right? And everybody pitches in, and you have an awesome, awesome webinar that everyone can leverage off of for months and months and months to come after the webinar is over. So this is Dave Weber. I hope this helps you. Basically it was made for my team, but I figured a lot of people can benefit from this video, so I'm putting it out there. And below this video, below this post, there'll be a link where you can find out more about it. So thank you so much for checking it out, and I hope this helps you build your team, become a rock star, and help them by letting them leverage off of your webinars. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.